Good afternoon. Happy Sunday, everybody. I'm Lindsay Kate Brown. For those of you who don't know me, I am the founder of United in Opera, and my job is to provide information, resources, and mentorship to people who are interested in the opera community, whether you are a singer, a director, a composer, anything that has to do with opera, we are here to support you, and we'd love to know what you want to know about. What things do you want to hear? Today, I have a special guest who actually I've never met. And so I'm really excited. Matthew Recio is a composer based currently in Chicago. I say with hesitancy, but I'm 99% sure. And I've actually never met him, but I am no shame in just Instagram messaging people and saying, hey, you have great music or whatever, and going to chat with them. So I'm going to Matthew to come hang out with me, and we're just going to chat about all that good stuff. So we're just going to wait for him to pop on. But if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. Leave any info. Hey!
Hi.
I'm literally just like giving my spiel, and I was like, so I've never met Matthew before, and I have zero shame in talking to people that I don't know. So it's
I love
fine.
it.
I'm a bold human. What's going on? How are you doing?
I'm great. I am in Chicago.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm originally from New York, but I've been in Chicago for 2 years now since working with COT.
Okay, I was gonna say, but you're not in school there.
I'm not.
You finished up school already.
Yeah, I did my grad work at Indiana. So I was living
Okay.
in Bloomington for 5 years, and then I made my way over here. So I've been in the Midwest for like a minute.
A hot minute.
Yeah, for
like a
7 years.
hot minute. Several hot minutes.
Hot minutes.
I guess cold minutes because it's real cold there. But
This winter, let me tell you.
has it been disgusting, to be quite honest?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
she's
so
bad.
last winter it was like so mild, and I was
Mhm.
spoiled this winter. Like snow, like insane amount of snow. Hold on, sorry, my
Oh, really? No, you're fine.
phone holder is
Adjust
falling down.
thyself. You're totally fine.
Cool.
I'm
Yeah.
just sitting. I'm sitting here with my like ring light, and I'm just like, please tell me about it.
See, my ring light is falling apart a little bit, so that's why I was like, "Oh no, this might not work." We
I
may have to do
literally,
a switcheroo midway. We'll see. Hopefully, it'll stay together.
yeah. No, it's doing well so far. But okay, so obviously you and I have never met, so I am gonna learn a lot of things about you, and I'm really excited to just chat with you about, your compositions and your style and just,
Yeah.
your journey in life and stuff. But my first thing I want to ask is like, what has like life been like since like the pandemic started? How has that been for you? Has it been
Yeah.
feeding you artistically? How have you felt in general?
So that this all happened during the first year of my residency. So that was last year during
Amazing.
with Chicago Opera Theater. So normally I would be going to see shows and flying out to go see different things. So I
Sure.
put a halt on stuff.
Hmm.
Um, but I was fortunate in the way that I was in residence with COT, and so
Hmm.
financially I was in a really lucky place.
Sure.
Artistically, between March and like May, I just didn't want to write. I was so
Yeah.
unmotivated. And I had to kind of like get myself out of that. So but
Yeah.
I think by like June, I was kind of back into it, like ready to be creative. But it was hard. I didn't want to. Like I mean, I wasn't conducive where I am living. I live with three other
Hmm.
people, and normally I can like go to a space and write.
Hmm.
Here, I had to write in my apartment, in my room, and it was not the most conducive, but I mean, I learned a lot
Absolutely.
about what I need, like creatively.
Hmm.
What do I need to like do well? So that was a learning curve.
No,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, and then like what was weird is that this past year I actually got a bunch of commissions, which is surprising since a lot of things are closed. So
Right.
I have been very filled with work, which is amazing,
Good.
but surprising. But I'm
No,
very thankful.
absolutely. Well, I always ask this question, like, obviously, yes, we were in the middle of the pandemic, but I always ask this question because I think regardless of what society and what some people may expect, like, we have to keep moving, we have to keep doing things. It's not like, it's okay to say that, for 3 months, I didn't want to sing in my case, or I
Yeah.
didn't want to write. And I think that's okay. And I think that people need to continuously hear that. So when they have those moments of
Hmm.
just lack of want, lack of creativity, that it's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, and there was so much of that period I was like, what am I doing that's contributing, that's going to
Yeah.
help? Like I felt like what I did wasn't important. I mean, it's important, but at the time it did not feel important. and
Yeah.
I had to kind of discover what is important, and I got it on the other end, but
Yeah,
there was that rough
we're still here. We're making it. We're
We're
doing
making
it.
it. We're doing
It's fine.
it.
Everybody's fine. Well, thank you. I appreciate you being so candid about that. So how did you get into composition? Like, what's your like little like life journey?
Yeah. So from Long Island, and
Okay.
my family are all creatives. They're not like my mom's a visual artist, my dad's a musician.
Cool.
So I always had like that support, and even like all my cousins, like they're all like appreciate the arts, even if they're not involved in
Sure.
it for a career. So I started playing trumpet when I was 8, so that was fun.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I love
And
that.
yeah, so I kind of got into music through that. And I always was really curious. I always loved to like learn instruments. So I'd pick up other
Mhm.
instruments, pick up piano. Um, and I would sing in chorus. So I kind of like want to do all the things. But it was hard because I didn't
Absolutely.
want to focus because I loved doing them all.
Hmm.
Um, in the end, I think it served me because for composition, it's better to know more than
More than less.
yes.
Absolutely.
So when I was like 13 or 14, I saw Lord of the Rings, the movie, and I was like, oh, I really want to like write down that score. And I like that was the first time like really like transcribing like notation. Like I used
Yeah.
Finale and I like transcribed what I was hearing. And
Hmm.
so mostly what I did the first year when I was like 13, 14 was transcribe scores that I really enjoyed.
Yeah. We
Um,
love big nerd energy.
we
We
love nerd
we love nerd
energy.
energy. I can't tell you enough. You're like, oh,
Listen.
I just transcribed Lord of the Rings. It's cool. And I'm like, you and I are now best friends.
We are
Great.
kindred
Okay.
spirits. Love
It's
this.
cool. Okay. Keep going. Keep going.
So then, I think it was like when I was 15, my high school, it was just a regular public school, but I was really fortunate. It was a robust like music program.
Hmm.
So I was writing original stuff with my jazz teacher and my theory teacher, and that's kind of what got me the bug. I was showing that I did transcriptions. He's like, great, now let's write original stuff. So that kind of got me into writing original music
Okay.
when I was about like 15.
Okay.
So yeah, but my first start was film scores and like re-transcribing just what I heard,
Yeah.
which is a
So
whole
did
different skill.
Did you have a like I know that a lot of composers and a lot of people that turn into conductors, they have a specific instrument that they would consider their like quote unquote primary before they
Yeah.
move into like composition or whatever. Did you have one or because you were so interested in everything, you just were like, I'm gonna do everything. Thank you for being here.
So I then started taking piano lessons, and piano became a main instrument. And I kept continuing to trumpet. And when I went to undergrad at Ithaca, I studied trumpet and piano. I was in 2 different studios,
Okay.
and but then I also knew clarinet for a long time, and there was a point in
Perfect.
time where I was like, I don't know if I want to do the trumpet thing anymore. It's like a lot of work, and I don't love the instrument. I love clarinet, so I actually auditioned and switched studios. So I started as a trumpet
Wow.
major, finished as a clarinet major, and was in a piano
Okay.
studio the whole time. So
We need to pause for a second and note that you went to Ithaca because I grew up like 40 minutes from there.
no way,
So
where'd you
when
grow up?
I grew up in Waterloo,
Okay, yeah, yeah,
so like yeah, just like in between Rochester, Syracuse. And so
yeah.
every time I see that, every time I see that someone's gone to Ithaca, I was like, you know my people.
I do, I do.
You
I
know my
know Central
upstate
New
New
York
York
real
people.
well. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
So
so I always I accompanied voice students. Well,
okay.
honestly, what got me into really loving voice like singers is high school when I would accompany the choirs,
So
and
you can
then
actually play the piano, not just like
yeah,
Lindsay took 5 semesters of piano to pass her undergrad
yeah,
exams and
yeah,
can play nothing now. Okay.
yeah.
At least I know that it's like you can actually play.
Yes,
Okay, cool.
I could touch the piano. So then I kept playing for singers while I was at Ithaca, and I loved it. I loved working with singers. It was just so much
Yeah.
fun, and um, a different feeling than working with instrumentalists. I mean, I love working
Yeah.
with instrumentalists, but I just when there's text and there's story and character, it's
A
way more
different
fun.
thing.
It's a different
It's
thing.
a different thing. Well,
Yeah.
I love that. So okay, for what would you consider your like first this is hello, I'm Matthew Recio. This is my first composition.
Ooh, that's a great question.
Because I always think
Um,
like, do you consider like the thing you wrote at 15, like for your high school, do you consider that your first composition, or do you consider like your first professional gig or like your first thing in your master's that you really liked? Do you consider that your
yeah,
first composition?
that's a great question. So the more and more I go on, the more and more I write. Like I feel like there's stuff that I'm like, oh, I gotta throw that out of my repertoire list because it's
Yeah.
just like my voice has changed.
Yeah.
I'm
And
now at a
we've talked
point,
about that a little bit, but
yeah, and like I'm at a point in my life where I feel like the last like 5 years, there's nothing I would throw out that I'm like, no, this is who I am, and like this
mhm.
maybe my voice will change, but like this is what it is.
This is still representative of what I can do and of my art
Exactly.
and my creative mind. Okay.
Exactly. There's like maybe one or two pieces from undergrad that I have that I still like advertise as being part of my rep.
Sure.
But I still like value those stuff that I did in high school. Like I wrote for the choir, I wrote for the band, and like that piece I wrote for the choir, I learned a lot. So it's
Yeah.
not that I like forget about it, and it's not like it's a part of who I am. And like the same way that what you would cringe listening to a recording probably from high school, but it
Oofda.
also is
Yeah.
like a part of what you did, and it was important because if you didn't have that, you wouldn't get to hear it.
Oh yeah. Whenever I am having a bad day, I like go back and listen to recordings from undergrad and I'm like, okay, she's come a long way. Okay. We're still okay. We're okay. Today was a bad lesson, but it's okay because 5 years ago you couldn't sing even in the same
Yep,
octaves.
yep. It's all
You just keep
perspective.
moving. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So that's good to know because I definitely want to talk about, okay, I want to talk about your compositional style a little bit.
Sure.
So obviously you and I have talked about how it has changed and has, morphed, which I would expect that it would as you've had more training, worked with more people, had different life experiences. So
hmm
how would you describe your compositional style and like how do you think it's changed since you've been
Yeah.
composing?
Yeah. So, in general, like I tend to write lyrically. I love harmonically driven music.
Hmm.
Not that I write like traditional old school harmonic language, but if
Sure.
we're getting like nitty gritty about it. But yeah, I always want lyricism there, and I very much like think in images, like when I'm writing. Like, yeah, I have my tools, my tricks, like when I'm writing. That's more
Sure.
theoretical, but for me, it's about is this creating an energy? Is this creating an emotion? And is this that's more important to me.
Sure.
So a lot of like my inspirations, like Britain, I love Britain. I love like Ravel. I love Debussy. I love yeah.
So
There's a lot
harmonic
there.
with a flair.
Yeah, and like even when my stuff isn't like functional harmonically, it's eccentric. So
Yeah.
it feels like it's in a world or it's in some sort of mode or collection, and like
Got it. Okay.
it's not just random noise. Or random, but some people like this. People like to do stuff that's more about like the sound rather than the harmony, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, and like my instrumental writing, I do probably more of playing with what is the absence of harmony. Um,
Sure.
but yeah, I think like as I'm growing, I'm trying to figure out like how do I marry all these things to tell stories? Like that's the
Yeah.
more important thing is like be able to do it all so that I can kind of transfer it into the most effective storytelling.
No, absolutely. And I mean, correct me if my opinion is wrong. Like shout it out. Um, I've always noticed or perceived in composition that there are kind of in new music, there's like two schools of thought almost. There's like the people who are going to want to stay a bit more tonal, going to want to have the thing at the end of the night, you walk out and you have your own little earworm
Mhm.
versus maybe something that's a bit more, I guess, like education based, like I'm gonna show you what a tone row is, and you're gonna come out of there being super confused, but I showed you a tone row, and and like obviously correct me if there's shades in between, and there's people that mix and do a whole bunch of stuff. But do you find that you fall on one part of the spectrum more than the other?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because like all my teachers that I've ever had, like when they were going through school in like the 70s, that was big. Like either you wrote in serial music, you wrote serial music, or you didn't.
Right.
And that was a big point of contention, especially in academia. That those lines have really blurred, I
Sure.
think, in our generation because, I mean, music's changed and we have access to so much, and
Yes.
a lot of everything's been done. So like to recreate is now what we're doing is like we're taking a little of this and a little of this and a little of
Yeah.
this. And so I do feel like I tend to fall in a more like lyrical, like neo-romantic, whatever that means to you. Like
Hmm.
that is where I fall. And I used to be self-conscious about it. And then I kind of was like, no, it's my gig. Like I know how to write beautiful music, and that is a skill in itself. And I'm okay with
Absolutely.
that. I think there's nothing wrong with that. As long as you know how to do the other things,
Yeah.
there's no shame in that.
Well, absolutely. I think there's room for both. I think
Yeah.
there's room for all types of music, and I definitely can get behind, I can get behind my John like Cage. I can get behind my Reich. I can get behind
Yeah.
all of the like
Yeah.
less conventional things.
Yeah.
But I like my favorite composer is Jake Heggie. Like
Yeah.
like that's
Yeah.
like he's my dude. And so
And
it's
he's
just
great,
like
and what he does is amazing. So it's
right,
like,
but
yeah.
he definitely tends that more lyrical side
Yeah.
than um the educational or more cacophonous, less tonal
Hmm.
area, which is
Yeah.
okay. I think that there's space for both. But
Absolutely. And I think now more than ever, the difference at school is not like serialism versus not. And now it's more of like electronics versus not electronics. And that's
yeah,
a
I
big
was
thing
gonna
now.
ask you what like do you have you dabbled in electronic music at all?
Yeah. In my undergrad, my master's, my doctorate, and actually the opera I'm working on right now, I'm toying with some electronics. But
Okay.
some people will do it with like live processing. I am more interested in fusing it with acoustic music. Like, how
Cool.
do I use these soundscapes to like help tell the story? So I'm doing some
Yeah.
samplings of like the ocean to help tell the story of yeah.
Oh.
So it's yeah, I'm trying to find my way that it feels authentic and not like I'm forcing it into a puzzle.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
What piece is this one? Or do we not know
This is
yet?
it's Ultima, the opera I'm writing with Stephanie Fleischman. We started a little bit of it with COT, and then I'm developing it further with West Edge Opera right now, in their Aperture
Okay.
program.
For the aperture. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we are doing a sing sample, and I'm also right now just toying around with electronics to show them what I would do. So,
Yeah. Well, I
yeah,
mean, I think the coolest part about new music,
I'm almost
so music
like Keenan.
eh,
Sorry. That's my
so
band teacher from high school. She's supported me for so long.
we
Yeah.
just talked about we were just talking about his time in band. So welcome.
Yeah.
Um no, well, because okay, so like when I say new music, music is always new at some point, right? So
Yeah.
every generation, every time period had its new thing, had its thing that was different. And now we're in new music. And do you think the spicy thing of new music is like this, the addition of um, electronics, the addition of generally non-functional things to become functional? What do you think is
Yeah.
like what are people going to remember this era of new music for, do you think?
I think this is such a hard question because there's so much different types of new music now that
Sure.
there's like it's such a hodgepodge. Like there isn't like a localized like this is what's happening. So
Hmm.
honestly, your guess is as good as mine. I know it's a terrible answer.
No, I
um,
love that though.
and I think yeah, definitely for sure. There's more non-standard instruments. More. How do we? Honestly, I think we're
Hmm.
trying to reach the biggest thing that I think we're trying to do is break down the boundaries of the concert hall. I think that's what's been really prevalent in our generation is like,
Yeah.
do we need a concert hall to tell the story? And I've seen some really cool shows and stuff that have used spaces that don't use the concert hall.
Yeah.
um,
No, and I love that. I think the use of a non-conventional space is what's going to make art more accessible.
mhm.
Because guess what? You don't have to like obviously I work at Houston Grand Opera and I love Houston Grand Opera. Like, I'll shout their like praise from the rooftops, but like you don't have to show up at the opera house to see a show, to
No,
hear good
you don't.
music. You can see an opera or a recital in apparently like in a drive-in or a garage or in someone's backyard or in a
100%.
garden. You can see
Yeah.
it anywhere. And no, I appreciate that. I think that's going to be something that people are going to remember, especially given this past, year,
Hmm.
a little over a year of just trying to figure out how we go,
Hmm.
just in general,
I
what
no,
we do.
I totally agree. 100%. And I think what's also fun is that when you do write for different spaces, you get to curate what that sound experience is and like, well,
Hmm.
what entrance will really make this space come alive.
Yeah.
I'm actually working on a piece right now that's interactive. It's like a choir piece outdoors and
Oh, cool.
yeah, in Chicago. So I'm kind of dealing with that right now, figure out how do I make this space come alive,
Yeah. Oh,
which is a
that's
whole
so
different
cool.
thing. It's really fun. Yeah.
Well, I think maybe that's what, in addition to these unconventional spaces, what's going to be the thing of 21st century music is the idea that everybody has their own voice and it utilizes whatever they want to create their
Hmm.
music. Because I think about like the classical, like, or I think about bel canto. So
Hmm.
the big three, Bellini, Donizetti, like Rossini.
Yeah.
You can tell which one is which, but their conventions are very similar.
Hmm.
But with contemporary music, current music right now, you can, it's just like, y'all do what you want. But I know that this music is this composer, this music is this composer. And that's what's cool about this time period for me, is that you all get to use your own voice in the way that you see fit,
Yeah.
which I appreciate.
I love. And I
Which I
love.
love. I love that journey for you. If you don't know Schitt's Creek, I'm sorry
Oh,
for whoever
of
who
course.
just
I
got
have
that.
a mug with Moira Rose all over it. I bought one.
As you should. I Oh my gosh, I love that. I love
It's like
Schitt's Creek.
her and like a bunch of wigs, and it says "I'm dying inside." It's Moira Rose, and it's amazing.
I bought my best friend in the whole world. He's obsessed with David from Schitt's Creek, and I bought
Yeah.
him a mask that says "Ew" COVID. And so that's where we're at, guys. This is what
Listen,
happens when
this is the products
opera
that we need.
musicians. This is how we've gotten through the pandemic. We've just binge watched Schitt's Creek for a year, and it's
And buying
cool.
things that we may not need.
No, Etsy has made a killing off of me, let me tell you. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we've talked about first composition. We've talked about compositional style. What else do I want to talk about? So you have written for a lot of different mediums. Yeah, you've done
Mhm.
art song, you've done opera, you've done choral stuff, you've done wind ensemble stuff, like instrumental things. Do
Yeah.
you? We talked a little bit about how you adapt the instrumental world into a little bit more, I don't want to
Mhm.
use the word chaotic, but it's a little bit more exploratory than
Yeah.
maybe some of your vocal writing. But how do you musically differentiate your works? Do you differentiate them?
I try not to. The only thing that I will say is when I am writing vocal music, I am thinking about the fact that ultimately these people have to like recreate this with their body, and
Hmm.
they can't rely on, you know. Um, and so if I'm going to make something challenging, it needs to be for a reason, and if I'm going to make
Absolutely.
it, and that the challenges are possible, like
Hmm.
what support am I giving them? Or
Yeah.
so it's just a different frame of mind that I use when I'm writing it, but I try to it's still my voice. Like I think that there is a through line like through all my
Yeah.
stuff, more or less. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Because I haven't gotten to hear your choral piece. That's the one I'm most interested in, because I've heard some of the
Yeah.
vocal stuff and I've listened to some of the things that you and I have like gone back and forth and talked about. And
Yeah.
I I grew up in choral music. That was like what I wanted to do. And so
Yeah.
oh my goodness, I wanted to be a college choral director. And then my voice teacher was like, "So what about opera?" And
And you're like,
I don't know her. So I've been to one
and
show.
now
It
you
was
do.
Bohem.
That was my first show I've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, okay, tell me about that experience, since you like write opera sometimes.
It was so my grandma, she grew up in Brooklyn. She wasn't a musician, but she would go to the standing room of
Yeah. Go
everything
ahead,
at the
Brooklyn
Met. Like,
grandma.
yeah, she would go. Yeah, she would go to the Met every see standing room every day. So she like saw people that people would just dream to see, just
Yeah.
because she would be there. So she kind of gave me the opera bug, and I was home watching on PBS. They streamed Bohem, and that was the first. I was on TV. I wasn't even in person, but I was like 14 and crying while watching. I'm like, oh no! But
Oh,
and the fact that I had that much of a reaction to it, I was like, oh, this is wild. And then the
yeah.
first show I saw at the Met was Flute.
Okay.
And then yeah, but Bohem was the first thing that like my first real opera that I saw
And that
in
kind of
full.
gave you that little opera bug.
Yeah, I mean the fact that it made me cry so viscerally, and like I was like, oh, this is a thing. This is
Yeah, like
something.
clearly I care about this. So that's cool.
Yeah,
I
and
love
I was like, I
that.
want to do that, and I always knew I kind of wanted to do that. I just didn't know how you do that or
Hmm.
when. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I think the truth is that people still don't know how to do like they don't teach it at
Yo.
school. It's not like you can major in opera writing. So and right now there's development programs and training programs, but those are new. So
Hmm.
the fact that we even have all these residency programs are that's relatively new.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, you've done, speaking of training programs and things, you've done quite a few um quite a few like composer in residences and like
Yeah.
different things. And I kind of want to talk about some of them. Let's talk
Yeah.
about COT first, because that's the one I know the most about.
Yeah. So
So
it's
like,
my
what's your gig with COT?
So the whole idea is that they take people. They don't necessarily have to be what's the word? Specialized. Like
Sure.
the other composer who just started her first year, she's more instrumental. She does big orchestral works.
Okay.
Lou. Uh,
Oh, okay.
but basically, what we do is Lydia wants us to understand the repertoire, that we get a chance to write our own opera, that we get a chance to understand the business. So
Yeah.
we'll do monthly score study sessions where we pull out three operas and we have to, we go over them in depth and we do like a 3 hour like debrief on them.
Oh, cool.
Last year we'd go to all the shows at the Lyric. We would go to the New Works Forum in New York City.
Yeah.
We would meet so many people in the field. Like now it's all Zoom. Although
Right.
last year we did have Zoom, but I mean, I'd meet conductors, directors, dramaturgs, singers. Like last week, I met Anthony Roth Costanzo. I met a few other people. Like yeah, really like amazing people. I'm like, this is so cool, and I get to
Yeah.
glean from them like what they know,
Yeah.
and
Well, and
yeah,
potentially start relationships with them and like opportunities. You know what I mean? Because I feel like I don't know if you and I have spoken about this via like message, but coming from a singer standpoint, one of the harder things about new music for me is like finding a composer who is interested in working with me and collaborating and finding something that, we can build together.
hmm
Because like you have world premieres from like the big, top five current contemporary composers and stuff like that. But like, what about like art song and things like that?
oh
Like,
yeah,
for art song, unless you have a big name, like unless you're Susan Graham, like it's going to be like a harder time for you to find somebody who's going to be willing to collaborate with you and work with you to create something.
yeah,
And I we talked about that just a little bit. So I love that you are able to foster and create these relationships with
yeah,
people from all over the industry so that
yeah.
obviously you learn from them, but then hopefully eventually you can work with them.
That's exactly the goal. And
Hmm.
yeah, and seeing how they got to where they are, and absolutely everything you said,
Yeah.
really
Well,
agree.
and obviously this is like we can talk a little bit about your I was going to save it for later, but like your 40 times 40, 40 by
Yeah,
40.
yeah,
Talk
yeah,
about that a little bit just since we're on the topic of like famous people and
yeah.
stuff.
So Laura Strickling, she amazing soprano. She
Hmm.
premieres a lot of Tom Chipulo's operas and art
Yeah.
songs, and she's amazing. And I didn't even know her. My work with Cincinnati Song Initiative, I
Hmm.
Trinkets, that piece, that
Yes.
so uh, doing that, she found me through my friend Sam, who runs Cincinnati Song Initiative, and then she
Hmm.
found my body of work. She's like, "I would love for you to be a part of this project."
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
yeah, and we just had a phone call, and I'm doing it with Jerry Dye, who wrote this libretto to Taking Up Serpents, um,
Okay.
and so we're both creating a song for her, and she's basically for her 40th birthday doing 40 commissions of very big art song household names. So like, who else did it? Kamala's writing a piece. I'm writing a piece. Scott Wheeler. Uh, Tom Chipulo. There's, I mean,
Hmm.
everyone you could think of is on the CD. It's gonna be great.
Oh my gosh.
And she's gonna be
Okay.
releasing in two different sets. So in the fall, winter, and then the year after she'll do another one.
Okay.
Because it's 40 pieces, so it's too much
Right.
for
So
the
it's
CD.
going to take a hot second.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I'm going to read this comment. I'm performing in a world premiere in June and my part was written for me. You're right. It flows so much better when there's collaboration. No, totally agree. I've had one song cycle written for me and that was in my master's degree. And it's for voice, cello, piano and like could sing it literally forever. I might need to have it taken up a second because we've gone up a little bit in the world. Um, we are no longer like an aspiring contralto, so um, can't quite can't quite do some of that now. But so obviously, like we talked about Laura, and you've written for her, but like, have you written for other, not just singers, but have you written for other instrumentalists, other people specifically?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the projects I do are for specific people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a fortunate place where I get commissions I get to change those stuff. So the piece that I
Yeah.
wrote, Trinkets, was written for those performers, for Steve Carroll and for Chelsea Whitaker. I wrote it for them.
Okay.
Which means, and so when we were in rehearsal, I mean, what was interesting about that process is that they were rehearsing it on their own, and then before the premiere, we came together the 2 days before, 3 days before, and like workshopped it. And I changed
Okay.
stuff for him. I was like, oh, why don't we do this? This will fit your voice better. so that it feels like a tailored. It's like the difference between buying off the rack and then having someone tailor you an outfit. Like,
Yeah.
so I get to do that. I get to make it fit that person's voice and
Yeah.
that they shine. Because ultimately, I want them to sound good. I want them to feel good, and that it feels like it's for them. So,
Do you even take it as far back as like the libretto for singers or for choral
ooh.
artists or whoever? Or do you pick the text and say, this is something I think is interesting. What is your thought? And then you go from there? Or do you just know what text you want to use?
That's a good question. So I work a lot with living poets, so we'll come
Hmm.
up with a concept together.
Hmm.
For example, Trinkets is written by my friend Jenna, who I
Hmm.
worked with since forever. She's a friend from like middle school, so I've known her
Oh,
for a
cool.
long, long time. And she's fantastic. She's based in New York. She's doing an MFA at NYU and doing
Okay.
really, really well. Beautiful writer. So we kind of have our own understanding and language that we speak when we like have
Yeah.
to collaborate, which is great. I don't have to like recreate the wheel. But I've been trying to dabble with like other poets. Like Jerry Dye is the first time I'll be working with him for Laura's
Right.
CD. Um,
Did you do Royce as well?
so Royce did the libretto for a Puppy episode.
Yes.
And then Stephanie Fleischman's writing the libretti for The Other Me.
Okay.
And the project I just did for Chicago Fringe was written by my friend Anna Gatula, and she wrote a
Okay.
beautiful poem. So a lot of it is me coming to them being like, what do you have? What do you... And when I first get
Yeah.
to know someone, they'll give me a bunch of poems and I'll look at them like, oh, this totally works.
Yeah,
If they've
absolutely.
never done stuff that's for the voice, then I have to kind of workshop like, well, this word might be challenging to set, but like, let's see what we can do. Um,
Yeah.
Anna's and Jerry are different where they're like, they're singers, so they
Yeah.
know. They like, or they're in the music field. With Jenna, I had to kind of, now that it's been so many years, like 15 years, she knows, she
Yeah.
gets it.
Yeah, she knows
But
she knows how to go and what to do and
yeah,
what works best. Okay.
but it's
Well, because
smart. Like the rest I'm working with are very prolific. Like Royce and Stephanie both have done a lot, so they
yeah,
know the art form. Like I'm not, I don't have to
you
worry
don't
about
have
that.
you don't have to
It,
say like, is this a potential like thing we could change or I mean you
yeah.
still probably can
I
make
still do,
changes.
and I do, and I'll ask and I'll say, hey, this is a little bit long. Can we crop this? Mostly, it's like too many texts. I'm like, can we like shorten this a little bit so that
Like
we
you are
can?
so great and so verbose, but I'm gonna need to take this back about
We
80%.
just gotta trim the fat a little bit. Trim a little
Just like a
bit.
little bit. No, well, because I think about the first person that just comes to my brain is Jake, just because I know his work really well. But like he writes a lot with Gene Shear.
Yeah.
But of course he dabbles out with a bunch of other people, and
Hmm.
he's like written like stuff for Helen Prejeant's text and like all these different things. And
Yeah.
um, I wondered if you had started a collaboration of that where it's like somebody that you can continuously go back to. And is that like what you have with Jenna or?
So what I have with Jen is definitely something that is like of that.
Mhm.
Um, Jake found that special thing with Gene, and that's why he keeps working with him because he's like, we get each other's
Because you
language.
know it works. Right.
Yeah, and I'm still learning, and that both all I've been fortunate. I loved all the collaborators I've had, and I'm still
Yeah.
like, I also want to see what different writers are going to bring out in my music.
Hmm.
So that's also interesting to me. Like, I like working with new people because it
Absolutely.
changes, it
Well,
mixes it up.
it changes your perspective too. You know, you can
Yes.
learn you I am a firm believer that you learn something from every person that you work with, whether it was a good experience or a poor experience.
Hmm.
And the more librettists you work with, or the more musicians, like singers, instrumentalists you work with, the more you learn as a composer.
I
So
totally agree.
I think that's awesome. Okay. I just the idea of the collaborative process is so interesting to me
Yeah.
because it's just like what I've done and I make jokes with you that we're going to collaborate, which we can. But
Which
like
we will. We
which we
can.
will.
I'm down.
So we're going to do it right here live. Here we go.
On the spot.
Oh my goodness. If you were like Lindsay, I need you to create a poem right now. It'd be like I have a cat and she's mad. She hates me because I don't feed her 17 times a day. Thank you. That's
I
my song.
This is gonna be a great song. I
Oh my
can't wait.
goodness. Well, you already got puppy episode, so now the next one is going to be the
We need
cat
all the
episode.
household animals, really.
It's we're close. It's fine. Oh my goodness. Okay. So COT, what do you want to talk about? Oh my goodness. We have so many things we could talk about. We could talk about Lucerne. We could talk about
Yeah.
whatever your
So
soul wants to do.
sure. So COT just a little bit extra, like she also wanted us to understand what it is to develop an opera, right? And
Yeah.
so I get to and they thankfully do develop a lot of operas, so I'm able to watch
Yeah.
that process. But what it is to have a vocal workshop, to have a PD workshop, to have an instrumental
Yeah.
workshop, to make those changes in real time, and then to produce the thing. So uh,
Hmm.
having that whole experience was amazing, and it was challenging because it was over COVID. So our second PD workshop was all Zoom, which went really
Wild.
surprisingly well. We had Andrew
Okay.
Whitfield, who's from Minnesota Opera. He basically made these tracks. He made like karaoke tracks, like with the pianist.
Listen, we love a MIDI file.
Yeah, we do, and he basically spliced it all together, so you had a full product, and we were able to like
Hmm.
take that feedback. So yeah, and finding my librettist was also kind of like dating. I had to call these people,
Yeah.
see if I want to work with them, see if we jive.
Yeah.
Do we get along? Do we agree about like the subject matter we want to talk about? So that was also a process of like, how do you find a collaborator? It's very much
Yeah.
like going on dates.
Yeah.
um, so I did that. Right now I'm in another residency program that's West Edge, and that's kind of
Yes.
like,
Aperture.
which is kind of like residency meets the Hunger Games, because it's like 8 teams competing for like
Oh my gosh.
one spot. No, I joke. But it's
but
8 teams
but also Hungry Games.
trying to get commission. So we all like are putting our best work. We create weekly
Sure.
content of like, this is my process. This is like a roundtable discussion. We've been doing that for 3 months, and
Hmm.
then at the end they'll pick one of us to write.
You're almost done with that, right?
I am. So we just are rehearsing the music now, and they'll have a little sample. It's an aria into a duet, and that'll be
So you
released.
can go listen to that. Is it just like on West Edge Opera's like
Yes,
website?
if you go to the West Edge Opera Aperture, you can take a peek. You might need a subscription, but I'm sure they're going to release a lot of this stuff after the program is over. So,
Sure.
but poke around on the Aperture website through West Edge.
Yeah. And if I find anything or if Matthew sends me anything, obviously I'll post it on here. So like
Yeah,
I'll just like you'll have the inside scoop and that's
the
cool.
inside scoop.
The ice
And then
cream scoop.
yes, I'm trying to think of like other. So another training program I did was with the Crossing. They're like a
Yes.
professional choir based
Hmm.
in Philly. Don O'Malley runs a choir, and it's a week that you're in Montana, and it's
Oh,
beautiful, the most
cool.
beautiful state I think I've ever been to, truly.
Okay.
And I get to play. I get to write this piece for this multi-Grammy winning choir, and I get to change stuff. And that was the best part. I kind of treated it as exploratory, like.
Yeah.
I wanted to go into it knowing I was going to change a lot, because I knew that they were strong musicians. I could do that.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, and it was roundtable discussions. Ted Hearn was there as a mentor, so I got to meet Ted Hearn.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's really cool. He's a very cool guy. Writes incredible music. So
Hmm.
yeah, it was that was another awesome like vocally focused training
Yeah.
program that I did. But yeah.
So I also want to talk about like all the like prizes and things you've won also because there's like I didn't even write them down because there was like a
It's
million and seven. So I was like, we're just gonna talk about the important ones. You can tell me the important ones. But like I do after we talk about them, I do want to talk about like where you find these things, where can
yeah,
aspiring composers go to
yeah.
collaborate with somebody? Where can they go to get a grant? Like if you can think of anything off of your noggin.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I guess, uh, so for in terms of creating a project, I've been fortunate where a lot of the stuff that I apply for or that like people ask me for, like they have the
Hmm.
money that we need. I'm now starting a project where I'm doing it myself, so that is a
Okay.
different process. One of my friends who's a singer, I want to write for them, and I'm like, let's make it happen. We'll make a monodrama. And so right now I am finding donors and finding people that would want to sponsor it, which
Okay.
is a whole process. I mean,
Sure.
it's kind of like something we don't talk about, which is silly because it's
Right.
real and a part of our industry. Every opera company has donors. They are
Yeah.
there, and they want to support artists, and you have to have a mission and something that is meaningful and you can present to them and say, hey, like this is what I'm working on. This is the subject matter, and would you be interested in sponsoring
Hmm.
this? So that is its own dance and its own thing.
So if you're doing a project that is not connected to if it's just completely independent. Like it's your own thing, not connected to an opera company,
Yeah.
not like do you still go the donor route or do you go like I'm going to try and apply for some grants? Like the Opera
Yeah.
America grant is the first thing I think of
Yeah,
just
yeah.
because I know them, but
For sure, there are grants, and I know people who are really good at doing that.
mhm,
I, I feel that I've been like really fortunate that all the commissions I had
sure.
are all through an organization that they've
Of
kind
course.
of built it up. It's now that I finally have some like time that I want to do stuff that's like for me.
Your own thing.
Yeah, which
Absolutely.
um and now I have that time. So I'm going to be learning right now and I'm asking friends and reaching out. Because I have friends that do. They apply for grants all the time.
Okay.
The thing is that all that work is happening. It's just usually through the organization. So it's not like
Okay.
people aren't fundraising and trying to get the money for these things. It's just usually the
Yeah.
company or the organization that's doing the commission is doing that work for you.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
which is very nice. Like it's a very fortunate position to
Well,
have.
it's just one less thing you have to
Yeah.
navigate.
Hmm.
But that's I mean that's good information because much like, singers who, like our primary thing is to, at least in my case, to work at an opera company and like
Hmm.
go from company to company doing a show. But like what happens when you want to do something as an independent, not attached to another program? And so that's good information to know. And like
Yeah.
things like those grants are useful, or like you said, like reaching out to donors who, you could have met previously or you have a special connection with without like stepping on the toes of the companies
Exactly.
that you've worked for. It's all good information.
I mean, it's because like when I'm in school, when I was in school, I would do projects all the time that didn't need money because everyone was there creating art together.
Right.
There was nothing at stake.
You could
Now
throw a rock and hit a soprano at you.
they will,
Like,
yeah, and they'll come in exactly, truly.
yeah,
Hit multiple actually. They're everywhere. So
literally everywhere.
so now that I'm not in school, I mean, I kind of was just writing whatever commissions come my way is what I will be
Hmm.
working on, which is a great thing.
Hmm.
And there are people in my that I've come across and I'm like, we need to work together in the future. Like,
Yeah,
let's put it when the opportunity comes, we'll do it. And I have
like
a list
put
of
in
those
the back
people.
burner.
Yeah, and I'm even like Laura Wilde, who sang in my
Oh,
opera.
I
She's
love her.
amazing, incredible instrument. And I just fell in love with that voice, fell in love with what she brings to the table. I'm like, we need to do something.
Amazing.
So we're right now crafting something, and we don't have and that's part of the work we have to do next week. Actually, is figure out okay, well, who will sponsor this? Who's gonna help bring this to life? So
Yeah,
it's its own thing.
something. Absolutely. Okay. It's funny, we're like we pick a topic and then we go to like 87 other ones, which I love. Like I love just being able to like have a fluid conversation because I feel like that's what's the most beneficial.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I do.
So I do. Oh, my life. Okay. Okay, so I'm just like checking my list of things. Lots of awards, lots of things. Okay, I want to talk about, because we don't have a ton of time left. I want to talk about the other things that we mentioned coming up. So
Yeah.
something very special tonight. So everybody who's on here and everybody who's watching this in the next couple of hours before 7 p.m. Central Time, this is for you. If you're watching it after like 8 p.m. Central Time, then I really can't help you. You could like go back and watch it, but you can't vote.
Sure.
So like tell them
Yeah.
about, so that's what, Chicago Song Slam?
Yeah, Chicago Song Slam, 7 p.m.
Tell
tonight,
them.
Central Time, 7 p.m. And basically it's I think it's 7 different teams of poets, pianists, and singers, and we created a song, and you get to hear it and vote for your favorite. It's kind of like a poetry slam. Uh,
Okay. So
Normally they're in
vote for
person.
Matthew. Thank you.
Yes, please. You don't have to for me, but
Please.
like, please vote for me.
But do it. We have loyalty here. We You're watching this interview. You have loyalty to Matthew right now. So
It's a
thank you.
text message vote. And
Oh my
Michael
goodness.
Day is the tenor, and he is fantastic from my good friends from Indiana.
Data
And
messaging rates do apply. Thank you.
yes,
Okay.
no, I
We have
don't.
no idea. Just
We
still
have no
vote though.
idea. And I was like, I just think of like American Idol,
Oh my
like back
goodness.
in the day. And I'm playing piano. So
Oh, killer.
yeah, my friend Jenna wrote the poem. So it's
Okay. Which one
some.
is the is this a song we know or don't know?
It's called
World premiere?
It's called How We Hush. Yes, I
Oh,
made
we
some
hush.
changes. Yeah. So it's new and it's a little sad, but it's like really beautiful, I think. So I hope you check it out.
Listen, sometimes the saddest music is the best music. That's why Evanescence and I got along for so many
Oh my
years.
gosh, I had Evanescence albums when I was in high school, so
I'm not gonna say I still listen to it when I like am at the gym sometimes because I just need to feel, and I'm like, at the
I
gym,
have the feels.
I have the feels. It's
But
fine.
that's a mood to listen to that at the gym.
Oh my goodness. Well, listen, my times on the elliptical have never gone faster than listening to Call Me When You're Sober on repeat. You know what I mean?
Listen, it's a mood. It's a mood.
It's a mood. We're here. Okay, so Chicago, I hate us. So Chicago Song Slam, do you call it 40 by 40? 40
I think
times
it's the
40?
four. You know, I should know. This is the 40, 40 for 40, 40 by. I'm not sure.
I
I should
know
know that.
I don't either, so it's okay.
Yeah.
But so that,
Laura Strickling.
Laura
Um,
Strickling coming out at some point in life.
yeah, it'll be coming out next year.
Okay.
So there'll be, and then I'm writing another, for another, well, I don't know if I can announce it. I'm writing for another tenor. He's making a CD, but that'll be coming out. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it. So I will
So just pause. But when it gets
just, yeah,
announced, we'll share it. So it's
then
fine.
we'll share it. I'm doing a collaborative piece with this group called Stare at the Sun. They're a
Mm,
choir in Chicago, and we're doing an outdoor experiential piece
yes.
where you can go to this park and you'll get to experience this piece with the singers around you, and
Hmm.
it's all written for the space. So that's going to be happening in June, and I can send that
Okay.
information out as well.
Please. And then there's
Yeah.
Chicago Fringe Opera, the little
Yes.
like Scanaditty.
Yeah, so what's happening at Chicago Fringe is again about seven composers. Everyone wrote duets. I wrote for baritone and cello, so Keenan
Cool.
Kyles. He's right now a young artist at COT. He's amazing and killer instrument. And then
Cool.
David Sands, he's playing cello. And my friend Anna Gatula wrote the poem. And if you go to these different locations in the city, you can go to the QR code, scan it, and you can experience the music video for the location, and you can
Okay.
watch it in real time, and you can kind of take a tour of the city while like hearing this music.
So fly
Um,
to Chicago,
Fly
find the QR
Chicago,
code.
yeah, everyone get on a plane, get in a car.
Everybody just drive. It's fine. No one has anything going on today, so
No, and
it's
I
just
love.
your
Oh my god,
Sunday
that
evening.
that piece came out really. I'm so excited. Keenan sounds awesome, and he has this like killer falsetto, and I incorporated it in there.
Will
So
this be on your site once
I will
the
post it on my site. So
okay.
anyone who's interested and would like to see the piece, it will
If
be
you
posted.
if you aren't
Yeah,
flying to Chicago today.
yeah, I will post it when the series is up for sure.
Okay.
All
Okay.
these projects. So.
Is there anything we're missing? You sent me a list. Was that it?
I think that's it.
Aperture,
Yeah,
duet,
yeah.
40 by 40, 40 times 40,
And
40
if you
for
want to work
40.
with me, call me, find me. We can find projects. I'm always looking for new people. So please.
Yes. So Matthew is obviously like tagged in this whole thing, and I'll tag him and like reach out with him. He's an incredible musician, and we love his work. So I've been dealing with puppy episode and trinkets for a couple weeks now. So I
Yeah.
know those works well, but neither of which for me, but it's fine. Um, it's fine. So the last thing I'm going to ask you, and then I'll let you go so you can get ready for your concert tonight. So something I ask every person at the end of my interview with them is if you have any advice for an aspiring member of the opera community, whether it's specifically for composers or just musicians in general, what are your words of wisdom that you would leave with them?
Yeah. Um, I think for me, I knew I wanted to write for singers in opera for a long time. And
Mhm.
part of that meant that I had to put in the work and actually just become friends with people and write for singers and have that
Mhm.
vulnerable collaboration where you're like, I want to learn from you, help me. And like,
Yeah,
I think the more you ask for help and the more I think ask for help is like the biggest thing I can suggest, because I think some people get
yeah,
too nervous of like, I don't want to reach out to this person, they won't want to help me, or they're too busy. It's like, no, if you just ask, take someone a coffee. I'm
yeah.
also a big proponent of just like make friends with musicians that you enjoy, because those are the people that I like writing for the most. It's like we actually have a friendship, we have a base, and not that you have to be friends with everyone you write for, but I think there's truth that,
Makes it
you know,
better.
yeah, and to form those real relationships, and um, yeah, don't forget to, yeah, do that. And then I think the art part kind of falls out naturally
Agreed.
after that. So I guess that's my
Awesome.
biggest advice.
Well, I love that. I'm so appreciative for you coming here, and obviously, my no shame November of just showing up and being like, "Hey, you want to come talk with me?" So it's fun. But
I loved it. I was like, yeah, absolutely. I'm down.
yeah, so I'm glad that we have our newfound friendship, and we can just talk about Schitt's Creek forever together, and that's cool. So,
It's my favorite
and
show. I've
sing some
rewatched it like
ditties.
12 times, so
Oh my goodness, I cry it too often. I have to like literally watch when I'm gonna do it, like because I'm like, if I gotta sing something important the next day, I can't be snotting all over the place. Like we can't be doing that. But okay, so nice to meet you, and
it's
I
nice to
can't
meet
wait to
you.
like talk more and work with you and all that good stuff.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
go check out Matthew. He's got an amazing website. Check him out on Instagram. Check out him out on every Aperture, COT, all these different places. And if you want to collab with him, let him know.
Yeah,
But
I'd love
all
to.
right, it's good to talk to you.
Bye. Good to talk to you too.
Bye. Have a
Absolutely.
good concert. Vote for him.
Thank
Do
you.
it. Do it. Do it. Do it.
Yes,
Do it. Do it.
join me, 7 p.m. Central, Chicago
All right.
Sunset. Bye, everyone.
Bye.